Hey, good afternoon. This is the part of the podcast. Welcome to Second Lap, where I would typically get in and give you an update on my mileage, seeing as we're about 90 days away from me hitting 10 years of recording. I know it's almost 35,000 miles. Yet when I go to the Google, formerly known as Fitbit master page, it now gives me like this page under construction. We'll figure it out later. And replied to a lot of my DMs with as many miles as I've got, that they're impressed and they've been with me, but they haven't responded to any of my, hey, I can't get my total number and I'm getting close to 10 years. So, but it's getting close to 35,000. That being said, I wanted to welcome Gabe. Gabe and I, Gabe, I usually start these. I'm coming back from vacation and I'm a little rusty. I start these by just introducing folks to how we met and where our relationship comes from. So, Gabe, why don't you say a couple of things about yourself? But Gabe and I basically became friends back in the military 30 plus years ago.
Yeah, it's been a minute. It's been almost exactly like 30 years since I got out of the Navy. But yeah, way back when in the 90s, we worked together on the flight deck of the USS Kitty Hawk, doing all kinds of risking our lives and doing all kinds of stupid things on the flight deck.
It
Uh,
was sort of the introduction to us doing stupid things. Like
yeah,
I think people are too protected and they don't cut, they don't bruise themselves enough. But we met 30 years ago. The spirit of this program and kind of what we talk through is just sort of a life hacks and little things. I have a mission statement that I want to be surfing 80, not on a oxygen machine. And so little kind of life hacks and things that we've done. What intrigued me, other than really loving to catch up and say hello and sort of go through sort of what's happened since we have been together, is your and I got into this mission after my reading my first time of through Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. You're doing these ultras, and what was the last race that you just did a couple weeks ago?
yeah. 2 weeks ago, finished the Arizona Monster 300-mile race. So 300 miles point to point from Superior, Arizona to Patagonia, Arizona, either on the Arizona Trail or paralleling in some sections where they couldn't get permits.
That,
So,
that's fantastic. And just at its core, we talked about the shit on the flight deck, but what has pulled you from the mindset of idiocracy where you're sitting on the toilet watching video games and things of that nature to wanting to go out and literally just tear your body up?
yeah, well, I still do some of that idiocracy stuff, but you got to recover. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's probably a couple of things that planted the seed. I'd say one is just grew up in Northern California in Humboldt County, which now everyone knows where that is.
Yep.
But in the past, people usually either I always knew a lot about their lifestyle if they knew where Humboldt County was. They either like, where's that? Or they're like, dude.
Good
Um,
stuff, man.
yeah. So anyway, I grew up outdoors. My dad was a pretty avid outdoorsman. And so I think he planted that seed of like enjoying the outdoors. And then I think, the Navy, my first job ever out of high school is going straight from boot camp to the Persian Gulf War,
Right.
launching airstrikes. I remember we came back from that first cruise, and I'd been in like less than a year. I was like an E2. It's like the second lowest rank in the military. And
Right.
I think we came back with like 2 or 3 rows of ribbons from that cruise. And at that time, there were like chief petty officers who didn't have that many medals. And so it's kind of that adventure of like, risking your life.
Yep.
And kind of, I don't know if it's I would say I'm more of an endorphin junkie than adrenaline, but just that going from that to I got out, I used the GI Bill to put myself through school, went to Berkeley and did a degree in chemistry and physics. But even then, I was like, I always wanted adventures.
Right.
'Cause, yeah, civilian life was good. It was nice that I was only responsible for myself when I was in college, but then it was also could be boring. So
Right.
contrived a lot of adventures along the way. But what kind of got me on the path of endurance sports was I've been kind of a runner my whole life, not fast at all, like recreational runner. I was stoked if I was running a 10-minute mile.
Okay.
And then, and I did a couple marathons along the way, mostly just with the goal finish. And it was usually because like I was getting overweight and I needed a goal to help me
Okay.
lose weight. And so I'd
Okay.
always drop 15 pounds training for a marathon. So I did a couple marathons, but when I was turning 40, I realized like, hey, I'm getting old now. Like I either need to start doing that stuff I've been dreaming about, or it's just gonna keep getting harder.
Right.
So I had kind of my 40th birthday, I set a goal. I was gonna do a half Ironman, which to me sounded like totally insane. Yeah, but I thought, well, I can run, and I thought I could swim because I was in the Navy, but it turns out I
Right.
can just not die in the water for a very long time. Not actually
Right.
freestyle swim, and I hadn't ridden a bike in like 20 years, so I had to buy a bike. But anyway, I did it, and then I figured that I would do it once, and then I'd spend the rest of my life savoring that. But I was like, wow, that was fun. I want to do an Ironman, so I did an Ironman the next year, and then kind of kept progressing. We lived in Utah for a few years in there, and just the
Okay.
outdoor are so amazing. And eventually, I said, hey, I should be out running those trails. And and a very long drive, I listened to the audiobook for Born to Run. And I was like, huh, I never really realized there are like these 100-mile trail races. So after that, I signed up for like a 50K, this race in Salt Lake City, in the Great Salt Lake, around this island, Antelope Island. It's like this prehistoric looking island, but
Okay.
free range bison there. And I did that, and I was like, well, that was fun. And then the next year, so
What was your time for the first for your first 50K?
It was like 5 hours and 10 minutes, something like that. It was pretty fast. I
Okay.
was at that point. I'd become a pretty decent runner from all the triathlon. What kind of my as at the triathlon, I was not a good swimmer. I was very mediocre. I was a pretty good cyclist, and I was a good runner for a triathlete. So as the event progressed, I kept getting better. Like I kept
Okay.
passing people.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
eventually I was like, huh, maybe the running, that's like my best sport. Maybe I should just focus on that. So you just kind of keep climbing the ladder.
Right.
And then I did my first 100-miler in 2017, the Bear 100, which at that time was a hidden gem in northern Utah. Now it's like a lottery to get in.
Okay.
Um, it's an epic race, but it's also probably one of the top 10 hardest 100s in the US. It has something like 23,000 feet of vertical.
Okay.
Goes up to high altitude, and that was my first one. I just signed up for it. Let's go do one of the hardest 100s. Is their first 100?
Was there any thought behind it? Meaning, like, did you just, put a thumb on the page and go, "I'm going to do this one," like, the jerk where he finds Nathan's name in the phone book, or were you like, "Hey, I'm going to do the most, badass one there is"? Was there any thought at all?
Yeah, it was probably more that's picking a page in the phone book.
Okay.
I knew I wanted to do a 100, and there's like this website called Ultra Sign Up, and it lists all of them.
Okay.
And I want to do it. It was a it was around September timeframe would be ideal based on where I was at.
Okay.
Um, and it
That
was one of
temperature influenced.
yeah, just basically like what hundreds are happening. There was a handful of them, and
Okay.
I saw that one and I put my name on the wait list, but I was like number 100 or something on the wait list. So I actually forgot that I'd done it. And then 2 weeks before the race, I get an invite to do the race, and I was like, oh, should I go do one of the hardest 100s on 2 weeks notice? Sure, why not?
And so
What?
you weren't expecting it. So that's why I guess what I was going to ask is 2 weeks notice. Sounds like Jesse Ixler. Is it like you just put your shoes on and went, or are you are you how did I say it? Like ready year round? Are you always training there for an event? Is just like a spot check for where you are, or how does that
Um,
work?
that's probably true now. Like I could easily go do a 200 on like 2 weeks notice.
Okay.
Now, back then I was not my training was not as good. I didn't really there were very few training resources back then. Like there were very not podcasts or no training plans. So I was just running, and I was doing some mountain biking, And so I figured I'll go try it and find out. I finished, but I was so wrecked afterwards that one of my legs swole up to like twice its size.
Ah,
Uh, I went to my doctor and he's like, "Whoa." He's like, "Hey, I need you to just drive to the hospital right now because you could have a blood clot." I'm gonna call them and tell them you're coming. It
oh,
turned out it was a blood clot. It was just there was so much like damage to the leg that it's had swollen up. So I could barely walk for like 2 weeks, and then but eventually after like a month, started running, and then you forget all the bad memories, and you remember like that was really awesome.
well, I was going to ask that. Is it, I've never, I mean, I've dreamed and I'd love to do, I think 100, the ideal, maybe we'll talk about this. Maybe there's something I'm overlooking so far, but I would love to do 100 mile that I could prepare for where I didn't have to like break maybe 15 or 17-minute miles where I could just go do it, with the intent that I'm going to, go over a mountain or something of that nature. But I'm, I don't hate running. I don't want the jarring of my knees. And it feels like,
Uh,
between the Navy, being a kid of Alaska, all of I ran cross country, all of the things that I've done, I've already need a shoulder replacement, they say, and I've had injections to try and get past that. I've got other guys that are doing stem cells, and I'm looking to try and do that kind of stuff. So I want to do something that's adventurous that really pushes the buttons, but doesn't kill me, from a
yeah.
pace perspective and in that kind of thing. So I don't even know if that exists.
Yeah, they'll definitely do it. I mean, there are people like that's their niche. It's called party pacing. One of these long
Okay.
races, especially even beyond 100. Like most 200-mile races, the cutoffs are pretty generous, and so basically will hike almost the entire race. I mean, you see them out there, and they look more
Okay.
like fast packers. They've got a giant pack, and they're just
Yeah.
out hiking, and then they they sleep a lot more than I would. It does seem like probably maybe on one sense it's probably funner. They're hanging out at the aid stations, partying, having fun. Some of them are like drinking
Okay.
beers at aid stations. On the other hand, they're out there like a lot longer than I am. So
Right. Right.
there's that.
Okay. So you do this first one, or the one that destroys your knee, but then you're back out 30 days later. Do you? The question I was originally going to is, do you? Is it all between your ears, or do you feel your knee at 90% when it's getting just jolted, that hey, this thing's gonna swell up? Or is it a shock when you look down and you're like, holy shit, I didn't feel that at all?
No, I mean, the pain is like the most intense pain you've ever felt in your life.
Okay.
And so I think a big part of these races, especially early on, as you're building up kind of resilience, is that it's gonna hurt like hell, and it's gonna
Yeah.
be mental. Like you're gonna want to quit. So from there, I ended up, I heard there were 200-mile races in this kind of example. So I ended up in 2019 doing the Moab 240, which is kind of famous because you mentioned David Goggins.
Yep.
He was at that race, and
Yep.
that was kind of when the race took off. Um, and I had never gotten a blister in a 100-miler, and so I didn't really know about foot care. And of course,
Okay.
I get massive blisters. Like I finished that race and I had blood pouring out of my shoes. I thought my feet were like permanently disfigured. My kids wouldn't even look at my feet. They called my toes alien toes because they didn't even look like human toes anymore.
Ah,
But it turns out you give it a couple weeks and it's like snake molting. All that skin just came off and there's like brand new toes underneath there. But no, that was a
interesting.
super mental.
Were
Like
you
the
wearing
pain.
flip flops, or
So,
what? What are you wearing as you're recovering from that? I'm in a bad spot to
yeah,
say
you
too.
can't. You usually can't wear shoes because your feet swell up a couple sizes bigger. So Crocs are great, and they're super
Okay.
fashionable too. So my
I'm
daughter's
more
always
of a
making.
hey dude. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm more of a hey dudes guy than I am a Crocs guy. I don't know if there's a couple of societies, but that's sort of the direction that I go.
I resisted Crocs for a
Here's the
long
thing.
time, but they're super comfortable. In my opinion, they're hideous looking. Although my daughters think Crocs are like the height of fashion, and so they
Yeah,
make fun of me for wearing them. Like, why is an
I've
old guy wearing Crocs?
I have 10 grandkids, Gabe. They all have them. They have the little bands and the little things that they put in the toes and the bling and the things you put on. And I'm just like,
Oh yeah, the Croc
I really
charm.
don't get it. Yeah, as I say, my bride, she has some of the rubber Birkenstocks. So Birkenstocks even got into the same kind of, hey, we're gonna do these
Uh,
rubber shoes. And our vacation, when she came back, she's like, they shrunk from the heat. So anyways, I digress. So you've now, hey, I've moved to a 200 mile. I've done blister care. I've, found, what I'm able to do. At that point, are you, like you said, hooked on, the endorphins and, hey, I want to go do this again? I know that you are a guide for me. My goal, most people know this, my goal is I want to be a permanent or a what do you call it? A professional philanthropist. That's my goal, is to
uh,
be a professional philanthropist. But your races have taken on a philanthropy piece where you're taking in funds. Is that driven by something that's happened to you? What pushed you to, sort of do that, just to be a better person? How does that work in?
yeah, it started actually at Moab in 2019. My oldest daughter that year was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and and so at some point the idea of like, hey, I could do this as a fundraiser if and
Yep.
me doing this crazy, insane, amazing, stupid, epic stuff, if I can make the world a little better place by doing that, then why not? And so I started with Moab in 2019, and I was kind of surprised. I thought maybe I'd raise like a few $100, and
Right.
I think that first one raised over $3,000. And then so each year since then, I've done one of these big races as at least one as a fundraiser for type 1 diabetes research. And then most recently this year, my dad lost his long battle with Parkinson's disease. And so I decided I would dedicate this race to him and do a fundraiser for Parkinson's disease research through the Michael J. Fox Foundation.
Okay.
Um, so if that helps make the world a better place, and it also motivates me, like all these people donated, like you can't quit. I don't know if you watched my movie for Arizona Monster, but man, I wanted to quit so many times, so many times. And I was like, oh, I can't quit. I've got to do
And
this
are
for
the
dad.
yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm not to interrupt. Is that never been on a 300-mile race? Is that like at mile 212? Are you seeing, not sheep go over as you're there, but are you seeing your funders go by of, hey, this guy, is it an accountability thing? Is it an expectation thing? What is it that it does?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a kind of helping hold myself accountable.
Okay.
Knowing I don't want to disappoint all those people because you're gonna hit adversity, and probably like some of the most severe adversity you've ever hit in these races. It's gonna hurt. You're gonna in the Arizona Monster, like 220 miles in, at night, I was on the trail, and all of a sudden I got super disoriented. Like I didn't know where I was. I didn't know who I was. And and the next thing I know, I wake up and you carry this your little emergency bivy. It's like a little plastic bag you can crawl into to
Right.
stay warm. Next thing I know, I wake up and it's been like 4 or 5 hours, and I'm inside this bivy, and I go, where the hell am I? What am I doing in here? And I crawl out, and I'm like, another racer comes by. I'm like, oh, I'm in the middle of a race. So I was like, oh, so I just start walking, and I call my wife, and I'm like, where am I? What am I doing? And she's like, you're at mile like 200 or whatever. It's like 10 miles to the next aid station. You just keep going. And I'm like, I don't even know who I am right now, but all right, I'll just keep going. And then eventually the fog lifted, and I remembered like why I'm there. I'm like, I gotta finish this for for dad and for all those people who contributed. Because you're gonna hit the lowest low you've ever hit in your life, and so you have to have a really good why. Why are you
Okay.
doing this? Um, is it, you're gonna need that why.
Is your, now that you look back, is the 220 mile trauma, is that dehydration, is that lack of sleep? What do you think puts you to that point? Or is it just, hey, at 220 miles, it's 0.02% that are even going to have gotten to that point?
Yeah, that was the fourth night, and I've only ever done a fourth night twice, and both times
Okay.
I think the fourth night I kind of lose it. One time I had a pacer with me, and he pretty much like this was at Cocodona 250 on the fourth night, and when you finish climbing Mount Eldon above Flagstaff, Arizona, and I actually went out of my body, and I watched us climb Mount Eldon. It was nice because I couldn't feel anything, so it was completely painless. But I watched us climb Mount Eldon. But this time I didn't have a pacer to just follow. Like I had to be able to navigate, and I couldn't navigate anymore. So I think it was just the 4 nights where up to that point I'd probably slept like maybe 4 or 5 hours.
Okay.
That probably just for me, like if I'm going to do another race where I go 4 nights or more, like I have to plan, like I need a good like 3 or 4 hours sleep that fourth night. Just
And
my brain.
possibly a pacer for the last 20% or something?
Yeah, definitely. I was like, why should I got a pacer? Well, I could have just followed them, or like they could let me sleep for like an hour or two and then wake me up.
Right.
Because I went out like no, I usually if I sleep on the side of the trail, I set an alarm. I just like was so out of it. I apparently just crawled in to that bivvy and went to sleep, and I don't have really any memory of doing that.
Well, I'm glad you did that. And we need sleep. It's one of those things I talked about a lot, that my 20s and 30s was I'll sleep when I die. And it's like you're proving that sleep deprivation, they say it's like being a drunk driver. Like you don't know, what you're going through, what's going on, and you kind of, wow, I'm still just thinking about that out of body experience. And it's it sounds really cool, and it also sounds like I'm glad you went through it and can tell me about it, and I'm
There are
not having
probably
to
a lot of
experience that.
easier,
So
sorry, a lot of easier ways to experience that. Maybe just do drugs. you know,
for sure. So is and we have just said about sleeping, but is the secret fuel? Is it secret how you fuel your body? I mean, you talk about type 1 diabetes. I know you're probably real focused in on how that all works. I've got other friends that have kids that have had it, and you go down this rabbit hole and wormhole, whatever. Does it go in and affect how you do fuel and nutrition for your body for these kind of events?
I mean, definitely, nutrition is the key. I mean, so someone's jokingly called these like competitive eating contests,
Okay.
where you do some running, because you just burn it through a massive amount of calories, and you're gonna run a massive calorie deficit every day.
Right.
So I'm pretty disciplined. I have my watch set every hour to remind me to eat, and so I'm targeting getting at least 250 calories in an hour. Which sounds it's really easy at first, but after a while, you're like your watch beeps, and you're like, no, I
I don't
just
want it.
ate. I don't. There was an hour. That was my watch is lying to me. I don't need to eat. After I'm like, if the watch beeps, just eat. Even if it sounds disgusting, just eat. Just eat. Keep eating.
Yep. Yeah.
uh, so yeah, it's definitely you have to stay on top of nutrition. I think if you don't, then you're probably not going to make it through one of these.
And are I've read some of the books from the ultra marathon runner and talking about ordering a pizza and things like that. Is there that aspect of it where you're still, kind of finding yourself like, hey, I'm gonna have this planned out, like, and I'm gonna say the 300 miles are more rare. Are you doing more 100 miles? What is your yearly sort of effort?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much training year round. Let's see, since 2019, I've run at least 2,000 miles a year, at least. That's probably the lowest year.
Okay.
And most of those years have been over 2,500 miles. And I also target getting usually the target I set for vert, elevation gain is enough to go to space, 100 kilometers.
Okay.
Um, so my goal every year is to at least run 2,500, well, 2,600 miles because that's enough to go across the United States, at least on the Pacific Crest Trail, and enough vertical to go to space. And I've done that every year since 2019.
6 years. Are you tracking it all on the same device, like a Garmin? How do you keep that all in a
Yeah, now I'm never
data?
without
How do
my
you keep that
Garmin.
data? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
I'm dressed in my work clothes. I've still got my Garmin because I want all that data. So yeah, it's on on Strava and for my kind of training, this application called Training Peaks.
Okay.
So I like have a coach, Jeff Browning, who's kind of probably one of the top ultra runners of our time, and we're planning out my training based on the races and all that. So
Is that accountability? What's the most, if somebody was like, shit, man, I don't need a trainer, or any assistance in this. I'm able to do it. I can put my own shoes on. What's the most valuable thing that that person brings to you, Jeff?
for me personally, I know some people it's accountability, like knowing someone's watching. Like I don't need that. Like I will go out and keep running.
Yep.
Usually they're there to help me from making stupid decisions. Like,
Okay.
all right, dude, you've run enough. You don't need to run anymore. Like take some recovery.
Okay.
Um, and also just make the training very specific to the races that I'm doing it, because it's very easy to get kind of in a rut. Like you have your neighborhood routes,
Yep.
neighborhood trails, and those might not be a good reflection of the race you're doing. And so really a key thing is like you're doing a mountainous race, you should be out in the mountains
Yep.
practicing at least a couple of days a week. You're doing a super runnable race, going into the mountains and doing a bunch of hiking is not gonna be the most helpful thing. So like really targeting like it's this kind of race. It's super runnable. It's a mountainous race, whatever
Okay.
it is, and then all the training leading up to that, kind of supports that goal.
Do you ever use any of those like masks to simulate elevation, things like that?
No, I've looked into those and the research is kind of questionable.
Sure.
Um, so what I mostly do for like altitude is I live in San Diego, and so there's not a lot of high altitude in San Diego. You can get up to about a mile high.
Right.
Um, is heat is sort of the poor man's altitude training. It stimulates the same response of generating more red blood cells. So
Yep.
the thing San Diego has most of the year is heat. I can get out there and it's super hot. So
Right.
it's not always fun,
Right.
but I'll do a lot of heat training. And then if it's a super mountainous race, I'll show up like a week in advance to acclimate to the altitude. I know some people will do like they have altitude tents because the key thing is you have to sleep at that altitude. So they
Okay.
sleep in a tent that simulates high altitude. Every time I mention that to my wife, she's like, "No, you're not putting a tent over our bed." 'Cause it has like a pump. It's really
Yeah, yeah,
noisy.
yeah. I was gonna say, I'm thinking of all the people that have those masks that they sleep with for making sure they stay alive, and you hear the
Yeah,
stories about sharing the rooms with them, and now you're gonna put the whole bed in one of those. So, yeah, I hear you.
yeah.
Is it you brought her up? Is it important to have somebody that shares the person that you become because of the adventures you do, the things to yourself? I mean, is it important to have that support? And is she excited, or is she my wife, I'm trying to lead the witness here. My wife will look at me and say, you need to put your shoes on and go for a walk.
Uh-huh.
Like, you're mentally losing it here, go for a walk. Like, she can see that in me. Does your wife benefit from the fact that she knows this drives you?
Yeah, she's been a huge supporter, and I mean, she's even when she's not at the races, she's the crew because I have two daughters, they're 13 and 14, so she's at home,
Yep.
taking care of them. So yeah, I mean, she's seen me go through this journey of, we met at Berkeley 25 years ago. Um, I liked adventure and I did some running, but she's seen this whole journey. I think sometimes she probably like, does the face palm like, why are you doing this to yourself? But I think she accepts like for whatever reason, uh, I need to do this. I need to challenge myself. Sometimes I wish I didn't, um,
Yeah.
but I need to.
Any kind of rapid fire here as we're coming up on the end? Any secret hacks for getting the best sleep? Are you a melatonin guy? Are you a CBD guy? Is there something that helps you to get into the place where you get the best recovery?
Yeah, I mean, sleep, like you mentioned, I mean, that's the number one performance enhancing drug is
Yep.
sleep. Like I prioritize sleep. My daughters make fun of me because I'm in bed like at 8:30 at night. Even if I don't go to sleep right away, I'm like getting there, I'm relaxing.
Yep.
Um, I try to just fall asleep organically, but I usually, if I can't, like I lay there for like 15 minutes, I can't. I know how important it is, so I'll take some melatonin,
Okay.
and that usually will knock me out. I kind of have like this whole recovery ritual at night of stretching, using the Theragun, and then CBD balm on my legs just to promote recovery. And whenever I forget to do that one night, I always feel it the next day that I'm like so much stiffer.
Yep.
I haven't recovered as much. So I kind of have this ritual, and whether it works or not, at least my brain, I think it works. So the placebo effect. If I think it works, then it works.
They talk about the placebo effect and they sort of made it out as this negative thing back in my childhood and kind of grown up. And oh, hey, this is what they're doing from a sugar pill. And it's like, if you take a step back and you're at the 30,000 foot level, your brain is fixing itself.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what
pretty
the
amazing.
placebo effect, right? It's amazing. It's literally fixing itself without the assistance of any chemical because it thinks that it's being given some magic juice. And people, like I said, people dog on it. And for me, it's just amazing how awesome we are. So,
Yeah, that for sure. I mean, it's kind of the industry I work in now is life sciences and clinical trials. Sometimes you see placebo effects at the extreme of like 30%, like 30% improvement just because they thought they would improve.
oh,
Yeah, the human brain and body are amazing. I mean, you can run 300 miles, and I mean, you remember I was a horrible runner back in the Navy. I barely passed the PT test
yeah,
when we
yeah.
had those. Like I was not like a elite. I was not an elite runner. Like I don't. I'm not able to do this because I'm talented. Mostly because I'm consistent and I believe I can do it.
I was just gonna say, if most of it's mental, do you like, David says he hates running and that's why he does it. Do you despise running or have you grown to have a love-hate relationship? What is your relationship with running?
I love running. Even when I don't want to go for a run, I will, I will drag myself out there because I've never regretted going for a run. Like a lot of runs where I get up, I'm like, oh God, I don't want to run today. And then like 5 miles later, I feel amazing. Like I'm so
Yep.
glad I did that run. I really
Yep.
did not want to. I thought I couldn't possibly run today. I'm too sore or whatever. And
Yep.
by the end of the run, it was a great run.
I love it. No, I feel the same way. And as I said, my wife knows it and she pushes me and we need it. And I've started to get on this. My new thesis is that, you know, all of this stuff that we work on is for the brain, and the brain is us. It's consciousness. It's who we are, and we got to take care of it and do all that stuff. Hey, I'm gonna let you go because I said I would do 30 minutes. I really
Okay.
have appreciated this. I hope that we can do this again. I'm trying to have bite-sized conversations that people can sort of take away value and things and tricks and stuff like that. And I think that, you've done fantastic with a desire to help you to also promote yourself. Is there a way that people can, see or track your, like, where's the best place for people to find you to see what you're doing, crazy next?
Yeah, you can follow me. on Instagram and YouTube. Both of those are Gabe's Misadventures. So it's my kind of my thing is like my tagline is, you know, ordinary middle-aged guy doing stupid epic stuff. And so a lot of times I do these adventures, but they turn into misadventures, and that's kind of the fun part. You know, you
Agreed.
wake up in an emergency bivy and you don't know why you're there or where you are. But yeah, that's why you do it, because something crazy like that's going to happen. So yeah, YouTube. So I've started chronicling a lot of these adventures just because I'm getting older and one day I won't be able to do this stuff. That's not
Are you
today.
doing it all on? Are you doing it all on iPhone? Are you using Google or the Google glasses or Facebook glasses or anything else to try and give people more of a perspective of what you're doing?
I usually I carry a small camera, an Insta360 Go 3. It's very small, so it just fits in my pocket. Um, I've carried bigger ones, but they're just, you got to carry. You're already carrying so much stuff.
Yep.
So it's still a 4K camera, and so I'll just take footage as I'm running along. So it's not like I'm running, and so it's not like I frame the shot or anything. I pull the
Right.
camera out, I point it. Sometimes it's kind of at a weird angle because I'm running.
Right.
Um, it's kind of raw, and I'm usually narrating kind of how I feel as I'm going
Sure.
through that.
Sure.
So yeah, you could check out my Monster 300 movie. It comes in over an hour, but it definitely, if you're curious what a 300-mile race is, go to YouTube and look for Gabe's Misadventures, or just search the Arizona Monster 300. I think my movie is one of the top ones that pops up, and you can see what it's like to run a 300-mile race.
I am gonna go watch it. I look forward to it. Last question. I've got 10 grandkids, 7 kids myself. They've experienced and watched me in this walking adventure and what I'm doing. Have you seen it affect your kids?
Yeah, they say they hate running.
Okay. Is
And
that because of you being taken away from their time, or what do you attribute that to?
no, they just don't like to run. I mean, we try to get them outdoors doing hikes and stuff. Just like when my dad took me out, hiking, I would see, I hated it. So we had a
Right.
Nintendo at home. I could be at home playing Nintendo, playing, Super Mario Brothers or something. Um, but later on, it planted the seed. So I'm trying to plant that seed towards physical activity, because I mean, just there's so much disincentives to running now. Like, so many people are, fitness is becoming a rare thing in our society. So when they see
It's
that in their
scary.
friend, yeah, which what you're doing is walking. I'm like, if you don't like running, just go walk. You'll get all the same health benefits of running. It'll just take longer.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's literally it's a time thing. I've done 5Ks and 10Ks, and I've done the world's toughest mudder while I've been on the path, and it's literally just time. So what I've done in order to accommodate the fact that I don't want to run is I just work my daily activities. I work in a job that I do a lot of conference calls, a lot of, the meme, this conference call could have been an email. That happens a lot in the businesses that you and encircle ourselves in. So I work in 1 to 2 of those calls into my walking schedule. I have my shoes with me all the time. I'm always on ready, or if I'm not wearing them already, because I identify as a walker. So I'm always sort of prepped for it. It's funny, I say all that, and I left my running shoes, my Brooks, in St. Bart's when we came back from vacation a couple days ago.
I know.
And so I've been walking and doing my activities in these Hey Dudes. And, it's like, think about it. If you were at 10 miles in your Crocs, you'd be like, man, I really wish I had a different pair of shoes. And that's where I'm at. And as soon as I hang up with you, I'm driving to the local shoe store and I'm getting a pair of Brooks. So,
Yeah, there's all these opportunities. I always keep running gear in the trunk of my car, because you never know. Like, hey, there's a window that opened up to go run for like an hour at lunch. I'm just
yep.
gonna go run. Then my lunchtime is gonna be go for an hour run, take a shower, come back, and go back to work.
Have you ever been able to? I've done this in my past, and I'm trying to figure out how to rework it in. Have you ever, had a business meeting where it's like, hey, let's meet up and throw a pair of shoes on and I'll buy you a bottle of water. Does that ever kind of work in?
Sometimes it's, yeah, I think, their point of, fitness is becoming increasingly rare. But if I know if someone like they like running or walking, I'm like, "If we're gonna have like a one-to-one meeting. Let's just go for an hour walk and
Yeah.
talk during that." But there are not a lot of people who want to take you up on that.
Yeah. Well, I hope you and I can change that one human at a time. Gabe, I really appreciate you doing this. It's been good to catch up. As I said, hope we can do it again and talk more
Yep, for
and
sure.
fill in more of the time between 30 years ago and today.
Yeah, a lot of stuff happened those 30 years.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, I appreciate it. Enjoy the
Yeah,
rest
thanks
of
for having me.
your Wednesday. Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
All
Take
right,
care.
thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye.